Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that, like the Cardinal payroll, is about to get cut. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined by my co-host, Ben Samorka.
What up, Nate H?
If you have an idea for the opening bit, text or leave us a voicemail at 848-48-BIRDS. Hambone, ham busy. We're about to get busy. We got a lot to talk about.
Oh my goodness.
It's
packed, jam-packed. Sardines.
We're like sardines in this episode. Eventful start to the offseason. Uneventful end to the regular season. Well, maybe except for a great pitching performance. But the season ends. Cardinals miss the playoffs. They do manage to go above 500 if you care about that sort of thing. But this is it. We are done with the 2024 Cardinal season. But before we jump into the news and talk about the press conference and the Kitty Woo article and all the stuff that is really going to be the driving conversation for the next 3 months to 3 years. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
It should get us to December at the very least.
Should get us to December at least, before we have to start watching bad baseball movies in order to drive content, which I can't wait for. There has been, you had, I guess, a eventful experience for you Denverites out there. So I don't know how much this will matter to our listener base, but why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your last weekend?
I think that if you're listening to this show, you appreciate baseball, and therefore, by extension, you appreciate Charlie Blackmon, who is an all-time Rocky. I think it's probably very easy to understand how beloved he is in the city of Denver. I don't know how much respect he gets outside of Denver and outside of Colorado.
Probably hasn't been top of mind for an average baseball fan for a few years, but I think, generally speaking, he is a pretty well received player, a good personality, sort of face of the Rockies essentially. And not that that's, I don't know if you want to be the face of the Rockies, but he is, right? At least after Arenado was gone.
His entire career with one team, he crossed over with a bunch of greats, including Arenado and DJ LeMahieu, Trevor Story. At least
Ian Desmond.
Don't invoke Ian Desmond's name. I know. This is a Cardinals podcast, and the level of names you can invoke it's just a lower stratosphere. But locally, Charlie Blackmon is like the Adam Wainwright of the community, of the team. He's the personality. He's the heartbeat. He's also fun, which I think is probably the best thing about Charlie Blackmon is he is funny. He makes fun of himself. Yeah. He has fun with the fans.
There's a whole ballpark thing you guys do, which is fun to do when you're there.
Yeah. His walk-up song, they cut out the lyrics at a certain part and the entire stadium screams it. So anyways, I went to his last game on Sunday, which was really fun. Going downtown, there was 48,000 people at the final Rockies game this year, which that is double or triple what we're used to. It was really fun. Downtown was buzzing. They made a whole thing out of it. They gave him a plaque. They ran him out to center field. He got a huge applause. The whole thing was great. The only real problem I had, and I understand why Buddy Black did this, but what my issue with how it was handled was that he got 2 at-bats. In the third inning, he hit a single. Once he got to first base, he got a huge applause, and then they flipped him for a pinch runner. Rather than what I thought they were going to do is let him get 3 or 4 at-bats and then pull him from the field so that he could have his long, slow walk and get a big, But the Charlie of it all was over after 3 innings. So then we're just sitting watching 6 innings. Luckily, Shohei Ohtani was in the game, so there was something for me to pay attention to. But I was really bummed about that. And
Yeah, why do it in the third?
I think Bud Black is a bad manager and maybe a dumb person. I've watched him a lot, very closely over the years, and I think that might
be
going
to his house, looking through his windows.
I understand ending your career on a hit, though, so I'll give him a little credit of that. Two quick anecdotes I do want to share with the pod, and then we can move on because I know we got a pack show, Nate.
Wow.
Sardines.
Wow. Okay?
Sardines. 2 quick notes. I was in line to get the polar pasta because I had not gotten it. Charlie's out of the game. God. And I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm getting the polar pasta. If you don't remember, polar pasta is a hunk of vanilla ice cream pressed into the shape of spaghetti with chocolate donut holes to look like meatballs around the outside with some red sauce on top.
Yeah.
The line was so long, Nate.
How long was it?
I missed 2 innings of baseball before I decided to bail, and then I just went and got a regular cone of ice cream and was able to get back to my seat. And I was tracking the guy that was in front of me was still like 12 people in line, so I bailed on it. I was committed to get polar pasta before the end of the year. Also, I should note that we discovered that Arctic nachos are another new dessert at Coors Field, which are basically just like sopapillas with ice cream on them.
Well, you see, the polar pasta, it's much like a Chicago deep dish pizza. It's something that you really want. It takes a while to prepare appropriately. You really want you can't rush that sort of perfection. So I think you should have known getting in line that you're waiting for artistry, and that sort of thing takes time.
Yeah. And I didn't have that kind of time. You know, time is money and money is ice cream and ice cream is joy. So I had to get my ice cream and get back in my seats.
That's some math there that I think I align with. Actually, I wanted to fight you on it, but I'm actually kind of completely in alignment with you on this. Yeah. So when you return to your seat with your cone, were you like mashing it with your fingers to try to make it like a little piece of spaghetti?
Yeah. Yes, I was. Yes, and to that. And then another thing I'd like to share is that there was a very gregarious and proud Dodgers fan who was sitting directly behind me. And she just keeps screaming, "Go Dodgers, go Dodgers, go Dodgers." And I eventually, this is the 3rd or 4th inning, I kind of reach behind myself and I just go, "Boo." Nice. And she bonks me on the shoulder.
She bonked you.
She whacked me.
She whacked you.
I turn around and she just waves at me. And she's a tiny little Mexican lady that is maybe 4'2", like tiny lady. And she goes, "I don't speak English." And then she pointed to the back of my jersey, which had Charlie Blackmon, and she gave me a big thumbs up. And I said, "Yeah." And then I pointed at Shohei Ohtani. I gave her a big thumbs up. And then we high-fived and had a great time. But it was just... language barriers existed, but the love of baseball and being a fool in public kind of brought us together. And I just really enjoyed that. And I'm going to miss baseball. I'm going to miss the season. I'm not going to have an experience like that for the next 6 months. It's a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I was watching I watched a lot of baseball over the weekend. I know we still have the playoffs and there's a playoff game happening right now, and I will watch that too. But I definitely had some sort of just like, I'm just clinging to what remains of the regular season right now because, I know we haven't had relevant Cardinal baseball for a while, but I still love it and I still like to watch it. And I watched the Braves Mets games were wild, and at least the first one was
fun. Yeah.
Poor Diamondbacks. I mean, it is what it is. You could account to any single game over the season, but it had to be disappointing seeing the Mets going up there just being like, "We do not care," and basically getting through that game as quickly as possible. While the Diamondbacks are just watching, me like, "Well, sure wish." They would try to beat the Braves,
Yeah, but it comes down to what you said. Like maybe Jordan Montgomery should have been terrible. Maybe Corbin Carroll should have turned it on at any point in the season or the first half.
You can
of the
point
season.
to any, but it is a bummer. Like the last game, it comes down to 2 teams playing where one of them is like not trying to win because they just clinched like 3 hours before that.
Yeah, and might have been a little toasty from that celebration.
But
they made it to the playoffs last year. It is crazy that like the best offense in baseball didn't make it to the playoffs. But it is what it is.
Yeah, well, it's crazy that the Braves went down to the last day too. I mean, if you had told me at the beginning of the season that they were going to have the runaway Cy Young winner on their team, I would have said, oh, so they're going to win 108 games, and ultimately they had a pretty good season and they're in the playoffs, but still
yeah, I mean, with Austin Riley not coming back, and obviously the loss of Acuna, those are just like
and Albie's missed most of the season too. So
he is at least back for them now.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like their year. Maybe you never know. Somebody could get hot, like a Matt Olson. Like they have players that could just carry a team. Matt Olson, Michael Harris, Marcelo Ozuna. Those guys could just absolutely go wild and do.
Well, there's a reason why they're in the playoffs still, and
But good for them, I guess.
Yeah. I've got one other quick thing to talk about before we get to the Cardinal specific content. I meant to bring this up last week, but I received a postcard in the mail, Hambone, from a person that's very close to you, a listener to the show. I feel like she's baiting me here, JB.
Oh, okay.
It is a picture. It is a postcard.
Oh, yes.
Of a dead couple.
Yes.
At the top of Pikes Peak.
Yes.
It just simply says they were on their honeymoon.
Yes.
I think she's implying that she had hoped that you and Mary might die at the top of Pikes Peak while they were all there. Not quite sure what the message is, but I've been laughing about this. I've had this on my desk for 2 weeks now, and I've been laughing about it like every day.
So you can buy a famous. I think I talked about this a few episodes ago, but a famous couple died up there, and they found in the gentleman's pocket a note from a friend that said, "Have fun on your honeymoon. I hope you don't die in the mountains or whatever." And obviously, they're dead. And now you can buy a photo of their corpses at the base of Pikes Peak and send it as a postcard to your friend.
Just a photo of a dead couple. I got here now.
Lovely.
Yep. So thank you, JB. All right. So, boy, we've got a lot to talk about. In a lot of ways, I guess I could say like a lot of this was not particularly unexpected.
No.
But I think the big shock from the weekend, sort of the way in which we're ordering this conversation, is the offseason really felt like it kicked off with the Katie Wu article that she put out. And then it was followed up by the press conference. And I think it kind of makes sense to talk about them in that same order too, right?
Right.
So the Katie Wu article for The Athletic, we love Katie Wu. Hope she's going to be still with the Cardinals for a while, although there's been a lot of speculation, at least in the Bird Score there was, that like this sort of article might be something you write when you're on your way out of, covering a specific team, but who knows? Ben, you want to kind of, I don't know, break down some of the key talking points from this article?
Yeah. So I think if you haven't a subscription to The Athletic, just go read the article because it is really great. And I thought some of the best work that Katie's done.
Yeah.
And it's really just diving into like, how did the Cardinals get to where they got? And I think it does a pretty good job of being not overly harsh, but critical and specific. And a couple of those things that I would like to talk about of how she's being specific and what she's calling out, I think really are around the coaching staff, the special advisors, the medical coordinators. I found this extremely enlightening. But of that staff, the Cardinals have 5 full-time minor league instructors, which is not something that I knew prior to her writing this article. That is the leanest staffing level in the past decade. So they have essentially lost people and they have not backfilled their positions. To give you some idea of what that means in the rest of baseball, the Phillies have 14 full-time field staff members. The Mets employ 15, including coordinators on catching, base running, infield, and outfield. The Brewers, who obviously just won the National League Central, have 17 staffers. So the Cardinals are, by orders of magnitude, far behind any team that is being successful right now. And some other things that came out was that Jordan Walker has not been working with an outfield coordinator. to improve his defense. He's kind of just going out there and letting it rip and working with the coaches, but there's been no specific coaching on that, which I find to be completely insane. And I think kind of what she was putting this all into context is like, this is why players are coming up and not looking ready. This is why we've complained about this several times. Players are coming up, the big league club is getting their eyes on them, and then they're saying, oh, Ivan Herrera has this hole in his game. Let's send him back to AAA, where there's no additional coaching or instructing to get better at this. Help me understand that, Nathan.
Yeah, it's pretty astounding. I mean, frankly, even that number 17, I felt like was lower than I would have expected. But when you go all the way down to 5, like the Brewers having 3.5 times more, people committed to working on your minor league players, like, well, yeah, no shit, they've been better for several years in a row, and no shit, we cannot develop anybody at the major league level outside of a handful of guys here who certainly seem would they be kind of just good whatever team they landed on. So yeah, it's pretty shocking, and it just seems so obvious.
What is the point of sending down a Nolan Gorman, a Jordan Walker, an Ivan Herrera to the minor leagues to work on things when there is nobody there to work with?
Yeah.
What? I mean, like, what, are you just supposed to watch YouTube videos and come to the ballpark and apply that? Like, it's completely, I mean, it's just stupid. It really is stupid. And I think, like, you and I have talked about this over the past couple of years of having this show, like the idea, or what am I trying to say? Refusing to spend money on this stuff is, I think, the dumbest thing to go cheap on, because I believe that every dollar you spend on front office talent, coaching talent, that is, times 5, times 10 of value of the dollars you're spending on somebody like Kittredge or X player. Like, your dollar's just going to go a lot further. Mm-hmm. So being cheap here, and they discussed this, they were being cheap there because they were focusing money on the big league club and they wanted to put a winner on the field, which I understand, but it's very short-sighted.
Yeah.
It's not a good allocation of resources. It really feels like Mo and co were just trying to keep their heads above water and not thinking, beyond 5 feet in front of their own damn faces. So it's baffling to me.
Well, as you were starting to hint at and became pretty clear from this article, what we learned too is that Mozeliak has basically been given one big bucket of money, and it's up to him to allocate it however he wants. And I don't know that necessarily is unlike how other teams do it, although it very well may be. But either way, Mozeliak had one big bucket, and because of, I suppose, that the pressure of being the St. Louis Cardinals, and also the fact that they have not been able to develop players, they've had to basically fill them at the major league level using money. I mean, we laugh because they're like, well, who have they gone and spent all this money on? But, the Cardinals have been in a top 10 payroll, for a while now.
And their entire rotation is free agents.
Yeah. So you can see the money's going to Michaelis and Gray and Lynn and Gibson and, guys like that. But every dollar that was spent on that is a dollar that is taken away from player development. So $2 million for Brandon Crawford, we think, okay, $2 million at the major league level, that's like nothing. But turns out when that is actually directly being taken away from a minor league system, which $2 million can fund like an entire season of, if not many seasons of coaching and developing and stuff like that. And instead it was spent, I guess, for the vibes of Brandon Crawford, it does start to get pretty frustrating when you learn that every dollar spent is is taken away from the minor league system. And as you said, it's obvious, it's short-sighted. If it'd be one thing if we learned, well, they were spending at the major league level and also spending at the minor league level, and it just wasn't working at the minor league level. Like, that's one thing. It's another thing to find out that they're just not doing it. Like 5 staff, you're just simply not developing players. It's not that they're being unsuccessful. You're just not doing it. So Of course, it's going to come up and bite your ass. Like, it's inevitably going to. Frankly, it has for years now, and the Cardinals have just been able to maintain because of a bad Central and some good luck, and like we're really, really lucky that it hasn't been 4 years in a row of missed playoffs, because 2021 was saved by the 17-game win streak. 2022 was, I think, ultimately saved by Albert Pujols suddenly becoming Albert Pujols of past in the second half and marching into the playoffs. And then they miss in 23 and 24, and most likely going to miss in 25. So like, it's been biting their ass for a long time, and for it all to just come out now, it's pretty frustrating.
It's so the 5 is insane to me. The fact that there are only 5 field staff, or however we want to categorize these people, it is insane to me that Jose Oquendo is the lead of these. Now, I could not have more respect for Jose Oquendo. I don't think there's anyone in baseball from a coaching side that has more pedigree, more respect. He's still improving players. He's doing a great job. And I think that that's fantastic. And he should absolutely stay there as long as he wants. But you have to be looking towards the future somewhat. There is like foot drills and ball transfers and all that stuff matters. But we also need to have somebody who can use the technology, that can leverage it, that can explain it to players, that understands how to use pitch tracks, that understands how to bring these machines and these technologies, tread athletic principles that we've talked about for 2 years, and bring them in-house. And Jose Oquendo is just not that kind of guy. Another thing, to go back on what you're talking about, the allocation of resources, it is like such a lack of discipline. And I feel like when Mo comes down from his little ivory tower to mumble things past his bow tie at us, it's always like, we're coming. It's the Cardinal way. We're being very disciplined. It's very focused, and this is work for. And it's like, well, this is a clear lack of financial discipline, and clearly you are short-sighting the future for the now, which hasn't worked.
Yeah, it hasn't worked for, again, now, like 5 years.
If the Cardinals were projected to have 98 wins this year, and they were short-sighting the future for a team like that, it's a much different conversation. We're talking about World Series contention. We're in the boat that like the Phillies are in or the Padres are in, kind of going on. But they're like not, because they're not good enough, but they're also short-sighted. It's just bad. It's just bad from all angles.
Well, he spent $20 million this year on $22 million on the combination of Lynn, Gibson, and Brandon Crawford. Who were all, I mean, I know like Gibson, okay, it would have been, maybe that was fine. But big picture, like that's not a winning play. Right. So, and then that's $22 million that could completely overhaul your minor league system, So it's very frustrating. And, Mo is walking away from this whole thing like, well, it didn't quite work, but now's the time to rebuild, and I can't wait to be a part of that rebuild. It's like, sit down, dog. Like I frankly, I'm very surprised. I don't understand why he's here for next year. I've always liked John Mozeliak. I think he's obviously pulled off some incredible trades, and he is, at times, I think, has been one of the best general managers in baseball. And we will always, I think he's going to walk away as an all-time Cardinal and all that. Caveat. But he's obviously lost it, And when Chaim Bloom was asked like what needs fixed, he said everything.
Yeah.
How does Mozeliak hold any sense of like pride about this when it's obviously been bad? He's the one who's in control of it, and the new guy is saying everything is broken.
But before we get to the new guy, I do want to hit one other, I think, important piece. I brought up Ivan Herrera, and this was a quote from Katie's article, and all the people that were quoted on this article, what you're doing it on background for obvious reasons. Nobody wanted to, have an uncomfortable email from Mo at the once this article is.
You don't want to get that bow tie spinning.
No, you don't. He might fly away at you. Buzz. This quote says, Herrera is the one who has been impacted the most, the employee said, while also acknowledging the organization's reliance on 2 decades of Yadier Molina, whose presence in a way allowed them to let catching development slip through the cracks. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
This was so obvious. I think it's nice to see it written by Katie and kind of backed up by background conversations with people in the organization. But it's this stagnation. It's this. So you said all those nice things about Mo, and I'm by no means calling for his head or anything like that, but it really feels like Mo's legacy was first propped up by Walt Jocketty, then propped up by Jeff Lunau, and then kind of propped up by Gary LaRocque a little bit. And then once those, like Gary LaRocque lost it, Lunau was gone, and that's a whole other can of worms. But and then the team was kind of just coasting because of the greatness of some players and a couple of key trades that Mo should get credit for. There's not a lot to directly attribute to him. So I agree with you. I think that's genuinely accurate, but I also think there's a lot of holes in his resume.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, let's look at the last 10 years. Missed the playoffs in 16, 17, and 18. Made it in 19, the best run of the last 10 years. They went to the NLCS. They got beat so bad in the NLCS that we basically forget about that season as a successful season. And then there's the COVID season, which was an embarrassing mess. Though they did technically make the playoffs. And I don't want to, embarrassing is maybe too unfair. Like you can't really control, but if you remember, the Cardinals were like the most COVID team.
Yeah, that was bad.
And then 21 playoffs, bad outcome, 22 playoffs, bad outcome. And then here we are, 23 and 24. So it's like, if you do believe that Lunau and that crew were really the heart of the 2009 to 2015 sort of consistency and a World Series and another World Series appearance and all that. It was a really good period for the Cardinals. If you think that was mostly Lunau, then Mozeliak has basically no success under his.
Well, I look at it like this, Nate. How long did Lunau's footprint prop up the Cardinals? And then how long did Lunau's footprint? It's continuing to prop up the Astros.
Yeah.
The guy's obvious. I mean, he's got all of his problems and everything like that, but he propped up two franchises for sustained greatness for what, 20-ish years?
Yeah.
Combined.
What's he doing? What's he doing right now? Let's bring back Luna.
I don't know. I bet you he's in like private equity and he's ripping companies apart.
Him and Steve Cohen are probably,
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling sour on Mo right now. Sure. I thought that press conference was a joke. We'll talk about that in 1 second. One last thing I want to know from Katie Woo's article is, though the Cardinals are one of the worst offenses in the National League this year, there is mutual interest in retaining all of the year's coaching staff, including the hitting coaches. How do you feel about this? I guess, how do you feel about the Ali Marmol sticking around? How do you feel about the rest of the staff sticking around? Any criticism or thoughts there?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last week as we were sort of projecting what may or may not happen. And I feel so ambivalent about this because on the one hand, I feel like, at least in Marmol's case, I think he's a totally fine game manager. Like, it's really easy to pick apart individual decisions, but in general, I think he does okay with the tools that are provided to him, or at least the players that are provided to him. I'm rarely like, Marmol, what are you doing? Put this guy in, take this guy, whatever. And then after that, it's all people leader stuff, which we don't get to see any of. So I can't really like judge him on that.
Yeah.
So like our biggest real concern or complaint about Marmol has been his communication style. And I guess there's a part of me that's willing to like let that go for being such a young guy. He's new to the industry, or at least to the role, and everyone's gonna have some growing pains. And the Tyler O'Neill thing was 2 years ago. So like, let's get over it. He seems like a good enough guy. I have that feeling about him. So him being retained, I'm like, sure. I don't believe Ali Marmol is the problem. Now, that said, I could easily be swayed the other side. Like, it's back-to-back losing years with like very little fire from the team, a perception of very little hustle. I mean, I know losing always makes it look like that. Winning makes it look like you're trying extra hard. But like, all we have is our perception, and it certainly seems like the team has not been particularly like engaged, and they've lost 2 years in a row, and they've made, there's a lot of like fundamental stuff that seems pretty slippery with this team. And so if he had been fired, I'd be like, hell yeah, bring in someone else. Let's skip Schumacher's on the market. Yeah. I don't necessarily want to bring in another ex-Cardinal, but like there's always options out there, and maybe that would maybe it'd add like 4% of value to next year or whatever. So I don't know. I'm kind of fine with having another year of Marmol and whatever. It's fine. I'm a little more surprised that like the rest of the staff that have more specific roles and their outcomes are more clearly, the pitching coach is responsible for the pitching, the hitting, and so on and so forth. So for them to have a whole season of a ton of people underperforming and whatnot, and for them all to stay, like that feels weird to me too. So I kind of was expecting a little bit more of an overhaul, especially we talked about last week. They said on the press conference, changes at the office and the dugout, and then there's no changes at the dugout, and
so weird,
and like one change at the front office that we knew was coming.
Yeah, the Cardinals are really bad at messaging. This has been, I think, a key to it. Just they're like, they just don't know what to do when they're not winning, when it's not going their way. And it's so obvious. And I feel like they need to hire a consultant or a brand manager or like they just need to change up the messaging.
To intrepid young podcasters.
I mean, honestly, Nate, have somebody who's under the age of 65 in the room to run it by might go a long way.
It might.
Because the little billionaire boys club that's going on up there, they are just so tone deaf, and it is embarrassing. Type this shit into ChatGPT and have it smooth it out for you. Like,
how would the youth take this? What would they say?
Yeah, I mean, that's to anything in the room, I think would go a long way. I agree with you on the staff side. I'll say on the Marmol side, with the knowledge that the Cardinals are going to be downshifting for sure next year and maybe for 26, I guess we'll see on how people are developing and everything like that. Like, what is Ollie Marmol's background? Player development. Mm-hmm. So if Ollie is going to properly, like I said, downshift, they're going to go into this player development mode, and he's going to be managing the team in that way. I think this could make sense to keep Ollie around, to have him focus on that, to pour into the Mason Wins, the Burlesons, the Walkers, the Victor Scotts, all of the young guys on this team, Gorman, really allow them a season to develop, get better with the coaching staff and primarily the manager focused on that. I think it could make a lot of sense. And maybe he does that this year, 25. Maybe he does that in 26. Maybe the team starts to turn around performance, and then you can have the decision, let's keep him, or let's go get our older seasoned veteran. And let's go for a push. And then, we'll have some money to spend and kind of fill out this roster a little bit more. So I don't love it or hate it. I think what will really determine that for me is what kind of moves, what kind of shedding we're actually talking about. And I think before we talk about that, let's get into the presser that happened. That I was listening to it on 101 ESPN, and the level of pissed offness that came from Cardinal Nation honestly had me a little bit tickled. I don't know what people were expecting. Did they think that they were going to like pull down their pants and say like, thank you, sir, may I have another? Like, these are the most button up, like they'll never take an L. Like, what do you think is going to happen? They're not going to grovel.
Yeah. To me, I'm just taking this from the general consensus that I also read online, but to me, this was sort of the epitome of this meeting could have been an email. There was no real revelation here. But in case you missed it, the big news is that Mozeliak is staying on in his current role through 2025. And then Chaim Bloom has signed a 5-year contract that starts in 2026. So essentially he's here for the next 6 years, where he will take over as the new POBO, president of baseball operations, and he will have full control. And Mozeliak is essentially retiring, although I assume he's going to get some sort of like assistant to the GM or to the Pobo sort of thing, and he'll be around or something like that. I don't know. I'd be super surprised if he is full on retired. But maybe he might be done.
The DeWitt's just, I think, like hanging out with him. I don't know what it is. They're buddies.
Yeah. And then Michael Gersh, critical piece of the front office.
Rip.
He's been assigned to special projects. And there just won't be a GM for 2025, which I think is kind of hilarious because okay, we don't know what their data. I don't know what their day-to-day, what their Google Calendar looks like. But the last time we've heard of Michael Gersh being heavily involved in anything, I frankly can't remember. It's been the Mozeliak show since day one. I don't know. I don't know what Gersh was doing, and now he's not doing it. So
the way I read the situation is that Gersh was doing more like people management and data. Like it was probably like in the weeds, and Mo was doing the big wheeling and dealing. And then my other read on this is that he and Chaim Bloom, for whatever reason, are not jiving.
Yeah.
Whether it's thought process or what, but the fact that he is just like out of the GM's aura all of a sudden, I think it tells you all you need to know. And then Chaim has made his evaluation.
Well, also, if they're just going without a GM, he couldn't have been doing that much because whatever he was doing has to be filtered off to other people. And if it I don't know, I'd just be surprised that like all of a sudden now there's gonna be like 10 people who are doing all the work of the GM. I think Mozeliak is just doing all the work of the GM. And I don't know how this failed, why it failed, etc. But the Cardinals just don't have a GM in 2025, which is hilarious. If you had said that 10 years ago when the GM, 15 years ago when the GM was like the top role in a front office, and now there's Pobos left and right, making me hungry for a po' boy.
So Bloom is on. Bloom, like Nate said, Mo is going to focus. He's going to be the ostensible Pobo GM for 25. Bloom's job will be to hire Gary LaRock's replacement. That seems to be the bullet point number one on the list. Build out a development staff and fully focus on development within the organization for 25. My guess is that he will pretty much be involved with everything because it would be really weird for Mozeliak to make a move without Bloom being involved because of obvious reasons. But I think, I guess to give my thoughts, I think that this is good.
Yeah.
I think that this is generally a pretty good move for the Cardinals. What I also like about it is that they're exercising patience with the length of the deal. And really, by the end of this deal with Chaim Bloom, I think that we can make a very real value judgment on how his plan is coming together. And I think what we should be looking at is strictly an improvement of the minor league system and for high-end prospects to be coming up and being ready for the game. I don't think that he has proven in his ability to bring in free agents. Hopefully he can improve there. I'm not sure that Trevor Story for the Red Sox or Masataka Yoshida, two of his big free agent signings, have panned out all that well. But if you look at the Red Sox minor league system, if you look at the Rays minor league system since the dawn of time, I think that there is a real track record. And I would be so happy if we are complaining about the Cardinals bringing in a Trevor Story to fill out their roster rather than, oh my God, they have to get 4 starting pitchers to make this season even worth it. So for that thought process, I'm very pro the Chaim side of this, the blooming of what's about to happen. But what are you feeling?
Just already dreading all of the there's going to be so many Bloom puns now. I never thought about that. Like, a new day blooms in St. Louis or stuff like that. But I guess maybe I kind of like it now. I'm going to be writing a bunch of them.
That's our kind of joke. That's right in our wheelhouse.
My first thought was, why is Mozeliak even sticking around for another year? I kind of said that already. I think we know why, but part of me is like, let's just, it's all so bad. Let's just do this now. Let's just move on. Just do it now. But whatever. It is what it is. Ultimately, to quote John Mozeliak, ultimately, though we just spent 30 minutes railing the St. Louis Cardinals and feeling really bad about the organization and where it is and how it's been handled. I am feeling pretty hopeful right now. I am a little excited about it. Maybe it's just new names, new everything. Maybe it is some of Bloom's success in the past. You said it already, but like the Red Sox farm system they might have the best farm system in baseball right now with some real high end talent coming up. That like I am interested in what he's going to do. I appreciate, even though I had to come from great investigative journalism from Katie Wu, I do appreciate now the transparency we had about the mistakes and the problems, and now we can actually see solutions. And I guess I don't know. I always view everything with sports, with baseball, and with the Cardinals with the optimistic lens. I want them to be good. I want these things to work out. I do think Bloom is going to be good. And I think that the Cardinals have enough of a core right now and have some guys in the minors that this retool, as they're calling it, because they cannot bring themselves to call it a rebuild, which I think is hilarious. That's another, I do love never taking an L, but I think it's very funny. They don't want to call it a rebuild. They're calling it a retool, which is the same language they used in previous years when they were saying like, we're just doing it for 1 year. This is a retool. It's not a rebuild. This is everything about this says it's a rebuild, but they don't want to use that word. They're calling it a retool. I don't think this has to be an incredibly long period. I think that they can, we'll talk about it here in a minute, but like, I am hopeful. And I do believe that there's a world where the Cardinals aim to compete starting in 2026. I don't think it's that far fetched. They don't need to do a like full on Cubs, Astros, we're going to spend 5 years losing so that we can then win 95 games 8 years in a row or whatever it is. Like, I think they can get back to competitive baseball as early as 2026. I know that might be a stretch, but I prefer to be optimistic in this, in this moment. So I guess I'm feeling pretty excited about it. I do like Chaim Bloom saying everything is broken. I'm really curious to see his communication style and what sort of insight we get. How is he compared to Mozeliak? We've had the same guy, the same thing for 18 years now or whatever. I'm very excited about something new.
Yeah. So, we've been saying, okay, Bloom's probably going to get this job. So let's start thinking like the Rays, or let's start how would somebody who's maybe a little more shrewd, a little more focused on value add, how would they operate? They probably would not extend Paul Goldschmidt. And we got news earlier this week that is going to be the case. Paul Goldschmidt, the Cardinals have essentially confirmed he will not be back. And Katie Wu also went on to confirm that any of the club spending free agents, unlikely to return to the club as they pivot towards a focus on bolstering player development, like we've talked about. So names like Andrew Kittredge, Kanan Middleton, the pitchers, I think Lynn and Gibson are up for question right now, but my guess is
Lynn and Gibson, yeah.
Okay, yeah, my guess is one of them will stick around just because innings matter. But I think pretty big news. Goldie's gone.
If you're going full development, you'd rather those innings go to McGreevy, Graceffo, Hintz, Matthews, Liberatore. Like, if you earnestly are not necessarily just trying to we need 6 innings, 4.5 ERA. We need to know we're going to get that every 5th start. We're okay with someone going out and losing the game in the 2nd inning for the sake of growth. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think Gibson, or based off of this, I don't think Lynn or Gibson are going to have their contracts picked up unless Bloom or Mozeliak can pull off something fun, like taking the option on Gibson and then trading him for something.
That's what I think is a high likelihood. I think that Gibson is probably fairly tradable right now. Lynn, maybe he's healthy, so maybe he's tradable. And I think Fetty makes a lot of sense as a trade piece as well, although he's inexpensive, so you kind of go one way or the other on that. But back to the Goldschmidt of it all. How do you feel the Goldschmidt experiment? Him and Nato, it's done. He's going to go to the Yankees. I'm going to guess the Yankees.
Yeah, the Yankees. I've also seen speculation about the Brewers, which will be disappointing, but it makks a lot of sense for them.
Christian Walker is a free agent. He could go back to the Diamondbacks.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be fun for him. So my heart side speaking here for a moment, I'm ultimately really bummed about the whole thing. We had Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado in their peak ages. Now, I know you could argue Arenado has never been what he was in Colorado, but like we have two cornerstone future.
2022, Arenado was proper.
That's true.
Badass.
Yeah. And defensively, he's been incredible. And even the second half of this year, he's been pretty awesome. So I'm just like bummed at the whole thing that Goldschmidt's walking away after a pretty bad season. It's not even going to be discussed. And it's just the end of we're at the end of an era in a lot of ways for the Cardinals. Most of it I'm happy to move on from. But the Goldschmidt era, Goldschmidt has always been one of my favorite players. When they acquired him, it was like one of the most exciting moments in Cardinal fandom history, between the trade and just like the immediate extension. And then he's won an MVP with the Cardinals. Like he's one of my favorite players. And so I am very bummed, and I'm bummed to go and see him play for, like the Brewers or the Yankees or whatever, where he's probably going to hit 25 home runs and put up 4 WAR or something stupid.
Yeah.
Then the head side of me is like, he was a below average player this year. He put up 1.1 FWAR. That's bad. And the Cardinals might be better next year for not having Paul Goldschmidt, both for the production on the field and for the development opportunities it gives someone else to take those 650 at bats. He played in something like 830 of 850 available games to him or something like that. I mean, what a dude. But obviously Burleson needs to be at first base, or Walker needs to be at first base or something like that. Like there's just a much clearer, we have clearer options that isn't going to take much to put up more than 1.1 FWAR, and we're still aging into their peak rather than on the other end of it. So I'm fine with it. I get it. It's good for the field. It's good for the team probably, but I just, I will miss having Paul Goldschmidt. Also great dude. Him, and we talked about him with Kelsey on the Roberto Clemente focused episode, where just awesome dude. So it's a bummer.
He's going to be 37 years old next year. I think that's probably the most important number, and that's, I'm sure, what Bloom and everybody are thinking about. It's unlikely that a 37-year-old will turn it around. Yeah. Now it's Paul Goldschmidt. We've talked about it. We'll see. We'll watch his career with. I think like if he got re-signed as a Cardinal, he comes back as a starter. I imagine almost every other team that's going to be looking at him are going to be looking at him as some sort of platoon option at a cheap contract, because all those reasons. 37, clear decline. So I don't know. I could see him going for like 10 million to the Brewers, and then of course it's gonna fucking be awesome or something. He crushes at their stadium, so that's gonna be disappointing. I also am curious about what this does to his broader legacy. If you'd asked me like last year, it's like Hall of Fame, yes. Cardinal hat, yes. If he goes and plays for like 3 other teams as his season winds down, or as his career winds down, the broader lens of Paul Goldschmidt might start to look back at his Diamondbacks years as really the time where he was, the most relevant. And I wouldn't be surprised if it falls back to him wearing and not that really matters, but I think about that sort of stuff. Yeah, the fact that there was no real playoff dent, like we were talking about, in a Cardinals uniform, and him leaving now, I think, you're right. It's probably Arizona or no hat. I do agree with you. He will go to the Hall of Fame. Or sorry, you know what I'm saying? Just his weird bald head in there. All right, so with that, no Goldie means that conversations are going to go immediately towards the idea of trading players like Wilson, Sonny, Helsley. Trade them all. Hold on to them. What's your thought right now, or anyone else you'd add to that list?
Helsley trade.
Yeah.
I hate
that
it.
Seems like the most no doubt trade in baseball right now.
I obviously don't like it. I'd much rather he be a Cardinal, or it's like either trade him or extend him for like 6 years. Either say like you're a part of this rebuild and you'll be here, when we're relevant again, or just trade him. And relievers, it's such a volatile position. The Rays would not extend their closer off the peak off their best season of their career. It seems like a super clear sell high. He'll probably go and be phenomenal for several more years on whatever team he ends up on. But I suspect you'd get something pretty good for Ryan Helsley.
You could probably get something pretty good, and you could probably get something that impacts a major league ball club pretty quickly.
Yeah. It seems pretty fucking obvious to trade Ryan Helsley. I think this was talked about in the Birds Court a little bit too, but the only real question is, do you think you get max value right now, or do you get max value at the trade deadline where teams are usually willing to spend for that final run? My thought on that is trade now, because like he's coming off the heels of one of the best reliever seasons like ever, especially in Cardinal history, but just broadly speaking, it's been incredible. And I don't want the risk of another 30 innings of him when we know we're not going to keep him. Right. So his value technically could go up between now and July of 2025, or you might find a desperate buyer in July of 2025, but I'd rather just bank the value now, trade him, and move on.
There are like 4 or 5 teams that absolutely don't need a closer right now. Pretty much everybody else in baseball, unless you're like Oakland or the Angels, some other terrible team, needs him. I think you can find that value out on the market. I fully agree with you. It would make a lot of sense if he was a Philly, make a lot of sense if he was an Oriole. Those teams that are clearly pushing right now that need a closer.
Fine, Jackson Holiday for Ryan Helsley. Okay.
Well, could you get Kobe Mayo? Could you get Kobe Mayo for Ryan Helsley?
Dude, that don't break my heart. That would.
I'm not saying it's a good idea for either team, or it's a good idea for the O's, but they don't need him.
Yeah.
Could you get a Heston Kierstad for
either of those? Would be a complete coup for the Cardinals, but I'd be surprised.
I think Wilson is a complicated one, and I think Sonny is a no-doubter. I think trade him in the offseason. Obviously, he's going to come at a cost, but everybody needs pitching. They don't have to do the negotiating. It's only 2 years. He's healthy. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like I said, I think Wilson Contreras for me is the big question mark. Do you hold on to him and keep this team, moderately worth watching, or move on from him?
So I've thought a lot about this, and it's another one where I'm feeling pretty ambivalent about it. And ultimately, like, if they decide to trade him, I'd be fine with it, assuming a good return. But I don't think it makes a lot of sense right now to trade Wilson, or rather, I'd prefer to hold him. I know there's the catcher pile up that we're dealing with right now, but I kind of feel like the same with him and with Arenado. They both have 3 years left, right? And I think there's a possibility that their windows or their contracts still overlap with the window that we might, the range of contention that we might get back into. And I would just love to still have that. This might be a heart thing clouding my head, but like, I don't know. I don't think they need to burn it all down completely to the ground as far as it goes with our star players. I know Arenado is making $35 million. That could probably be better spent in the player development regards. But I don't know that you're going to get a lot of value in a trade for him anyway.
I think that's where it comes down. Now, I think if Arenado comes out and has a great 2-3 months to start the season, and teams are banging down your door to get him, then that's an open conversation. You make it work. But
so I feel like it's kind of a sell low for both guys right now. And we see it all. The Cardinals have had to sell low multiple times, and it just never seems to work. Like,
no,
every player we sell low on bounces back the next year or the year after or whatever, and becomes valuable. So, why not? Like, Michaelis, Gray, I generally agree with. Helsley, like all these guys, let's cut them or trade them or whatever. But Arenado and Contreras, I think you hold at least enough to get back to, well, hopefully get back to something where if you do decide to trade them, you're getting real value for it.
Yeah.
And if not, oh well, like Arenado, there's some real concerns about him, but he still put up 3 WAR, and at least in the second half of the season, defensively, he was pretty incredible again. And so he's still young enough where, you can still see a world where he comes back. And with my hope of the Cardinals competing in 2026, I think he could be a part of that. So,
yeah, I also think, we've talked about this a couple of times over the past couple of weeks. Like, they like to have a guy like this on the team.
Yeah.
And frankly, I'd rather watch Arenado than a lot of other guys.
Well, that's where I'm like, it's still just like, I just want to have fun watching these games, and I like watching Nolan Arenado, even though it hasn't really been the full thing since 22, I still like it. Again, if Nolan Arenado gets traded in a month and it's a reasonable package, I'm going to be sad for the same reason I'm sad about Goldschmidt leaving.
But we will salivate over the prospects.
Yeah, I'll get it, and I'll be right back on board for it'll the wheel keeps on going, and we're rooting for Laundry eventually, essentially here. So I'll be fine with it. But I think as I sit right now, my preference is for them to hold Contreras and Arenado.
Yeah. All right. Anything else from the presser we need to talk about?
No, I don't think so. It's been again, lots of ups and downs here, but I am hopeful, and we certainly will have a lot to talk about over the coming months. And I love I really get into like prospects and minor league systems and all that. And the Cardinals have been a little dry for a little while, so I am excited to maybe re-enter a world where the Cardinals have a high-end farm system, and we just have all these young players that we get to dream on, except beyond the like 1 or 2 that we've had over the last handful of years.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be really fun. And there is something fun to, a season that's about to happen that you and I haven't really seen, at least in our like modern baseball lifetime. So, that alone will be something interesting. And,
really,
but not competing is bad though. I don't love it.
Well, I mean, but also it's just the way modern baseball works now, is that like unless you've done this work to establish a really strong player development system and you have a lot of money, almost every team, even the best teams, go through cycles. Yeah. The Cardinals are one of the only teams that, you can have your opinions on the effort on it, but they outwardly try to compete every single year. Like their goal is to win more games than they lose every single year. And most teams don't do that. That said, the best teams do. The Dodgers try to win every single year. The Yankees try to win every single year. So, but yeah, anyway, before we go to break, I meant to put this at the top, but wanted to get into the Cardinal content early. Ben and I are doing a race this weekend, although we're not racing each other.
Oh yeah.
So Hambone's flying into St. Louis for like the 19th time this year, I think.
Oh my God.
And we are participating in the Cowbell series of races this weekend that exist out in St. Charles. I will be doing my second ever half marathon. My first ever was this same race last year. I'll be running with a friend of the show, Brandon, and Ben's lovely wife, Mary. And Ben will be running the 10K with Brandon's partner. So we got a whole little crew. We're going to be out there. This may be the last episode of the podcast. So, wish us both luck. Should be a beautiful day. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be the farthest I've ever ran. We'll see how it goes. I don't know.
Yeah. So if you're doing the Cowbell, I didn't know. We picked it randomly last year based off of the date just worked really well for my brother and I to do the half marathon. And in between then and now, it's like turned out that it's one of the biggest race series here in St. Louis. And I see like MO Cowbell shit everywhere. So I don't know. Maybe some listeners might be there. So, if you're there and you see us,
trip us.
Trip Ben. We're not racing, but I still just want to fundamentally do better than him. So just go ahead and go and knock over Ben.
You're like a brother to me, Nate. I appreciate it.
All right. So we're going to talk about the playoffs a little bit, and then some league news and whatnot. But before we do, we want to remind everybody that this show is listener supported on Patreon, patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. As this season comes to a close, I want to thank all of our listeners for being with us through this year, whether you hopped on at the beginning, middle, end, or you've been with us for years. Obviously not the way we wanted the Cardinal season to go, but it has been still doing this podcast and having this little community that we have has just made it more fun, more interesting, and more, more personal. I feel like I'm more involved in it. And I want to thank specifically the patrons as well, who have supported us the most. And we've built a small but really fun community. The bird score has been popping lately, and I suspect that it will all off season as these changes go through. A lot of really cool, smart baseball people in there that I'm looking forward to talking about the changes with even more. So thank you to the patrons. If you want to join that group and support the show, patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. Man, I gotta shout out the Beefy Boys. The Beefy Boys. They won the Fantasy Baseball League. So
how could they do that?
I know. It's rigged.
I was so locked in, man. I can't when they were hitting them and then they were pitching them and the points were racking up. My eyes were glued.
Yeah. No one's cared more about anything ever than Ben cared about the Fantasy Baseball League. But some of us are really into it, and I got to give
I'm just bad. I can't. Yeah. I'm glad somebody had a good time.
Yeah, whatever. Give it to the Beefy Boys. Give them their flowers. They won. They got past the buzzsaw that was Team Nate, and they did it. So
you think you're a buzzsaw?
Yeah, sure. So we'll be back next year too if you want to participate in the Fantasy League. It's another part of the Discord or the Patreon. So also, again, a review on your favorite podcast platform is helpful. Hambone, hit him with the rest.
Wow, you've never tossed it to me like that before. This is exciting. Check us out on Twitter at Talk About Birds. We're on Instagram at Talking About Birds. You can listen to this show on Spotify or YouTube if you're one of those types of people. Come check out our TikTok. We got a TikTok. You can TikTok with us. And of course, you can email us at talkaboutbirds@gmail.com. As always, you can call us and leave a voicemail or send us a text message to 848-48-BIRDS. That's 848-482-4737.
All right. Okay, so normally we would talk about upcoming series in this moment, but there are none. So
nope.
Let's talk about the playoffs a little bit. Who you got, Ben? Right now, who's winning the World Series 2024?
Who's winning the World Series? I am fully on team Detroit Lions. I think the Motor City Kitties are going to take it. Oh, Tigers. Sorry. The Motor City Kitties are going to take it all the way. I think they are hot, caliente, and they're a buzzsaw, just like the Nates or whatever the hell you said earlier. I guess to be clear, they're the team I'm rooting for the hardest. Okay. I want that to happen. I will say outside of that, I'm really into this KC Orioles series. I'm mad that they're playing each other first because those are probably the two teams I actually want to win the most because I like them. And then, I go look at the National League teams and I'm like, they're all bad. I think I'm rooting for San Diego in the National League. Now, who do I think is going to get there? Who do I think is most likely? It really, really seems hard for me to see any team shutting down Aaron Judge and Juan Soto for a series. And Soto's hot. Judge is hot. The pitching is just enough. I don't know. We'll see. But it seems like if I had to bet money right now, I'd say Yankees, Phillies.
Wow. Well, my personal nemesis, Juan Soto, is on the Yankees, so I will never support Juan Soto or the Yankees after what he did to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
I'm not okay.
You seem like bad today. Really bad.
I haven't slept in 2 weeks. I do. I think all of baseball fandom is.
Are you watching YouTube? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm just watching you. Yeah, there's a new chef's table. No, I was trying to check the score of the Tigers game that's happening right now, and I fat fingered into a stupid ad or something. But the Tigers are in the process of maybe taking the lead in the top of the 8th, which would have them eliminating the Houston Astros, which would be fun.
Yeah. Telling you, the Butters, they're hot. Let's go.
They are hot. That's been obviously one of the more fun stories of the last couple months. And I think I have such an affection for any of these other sort of Midwest teams. Like I'm big on the Tigers like you are. I would love the Guardians to have a deep run. They're consistently the most underappreciated team in baseball. Jose Ramirez in particular, one of my favorite players, like the least respected future Hall of Famer in baseball. I'd love for him to get another shot at sort of the spotlight there. And everyone to get to talk about him. I think my prediction has been a Baltimore Dodgers World Series. And I think it's really hard. Just like you said, it's really hard to shut down the Phillies, or I'm sorry, Judge and Soto. I don't know how you root for or how you pick any other team than the Dodgers to win it all with Ohtani and Betts, and assuming Freeman's okay. And I know their pitching isn't perfect, but Ohtani's been on somehow another level in the last month, and he's having fun. He's brought the fun to the team. They're vibing. I don't want to root for the Dodgers, but I do love Shohei Ohtani. So my prediction is that the Dodgers are going to win, but they are very far from who I want to win. I really don't want any of the NL teams to win. I think I want the Tigers, the Guardians, the Orioles, or the Royals all to win over the Dodgers.
I get what you're saying, but Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, I think it's really hard for any offense to overcome that, especially in the playoffs.
There's the reason why the Phillies keep going deep in the playoffs, right? It's a big part of it.
So, yeah, I just think it's going to work this year. I think that they're really good. Harper's fully healthy right now. Schwarber is playing all right. Trey Turner had a pretty normal, good year. I think they're gonna push in and go to the World Series this year again. Not that I necessarily want that. I'm taking the pitching over the hitting, I guess.
Yeah. I guess we'll see. That's why they play the games, Hambone.
It's a great point, Nate.
All right. Let's dig into some league news.
We'll start with a bummer. Pete Rose has passed away. This was a surprise to me. I don't know if he was dealing with health issues or not, but Pete Rose, obviously there's a lot of baggage with him, but definitely a personality and somebody who stays in the baseball news life cycle. And whether you think he should be in the Hall of Fame or not, a controversial and interesting figure that is now passed. And I guess just a bummer. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of the, if not the greatest, hitter of all time, right? I mean, his stats are absolutely insane. I've always been pretty vehemently on he should not be in the Hall. He knew what he was doing. It's like the number one. It's a super clear rule. It's not like steroids in the 90s or whatever. Like, it was very, very clear. He lied about it a ton, etc. Last night, though, I was online, and I was just watching like Stephen A. Smith just screaming at the camera about Pete Rose, and then I watched AJ Przinsky like yelling at the camera about Pete. Well, he wasn't really yelling, but like feeling very strongly about it to the camera. I just started realizing, I guess I don't actually care that much.
Definitely don't care that much.
Yeah, it was something that I felt there's pretty much until last night when I was watching these dudes just like get heated about it. I was like, man, I don't care as much as these guys. I'm not a small hall guy. I think probably the right thing is more like a representation of what Pete Rose represents in the hall is probably the right thing to do. And that kind of already exists from my understanding. I still don't really think he should be like through a normal process inducted into the Hall of Fame, because it was a very clear thing that he did. And, it's how it should work. But if they put him in through some veterans committee or whatever, I'm not gonna
I think putting him in post death would be ice cold. Like, I think that'd be messed up.
He super wanted it. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if his last words were, "Put me in the hall." He cared so deeply about it.
So putting him in post death where he can't enjoy it, I think would just be kind of messed up. And I agree with you. I don't feel very strongly this direction, but I do think that he broke a clear rule. That rule is important because it is important for us to believe that the competition we're watching is a real and fair competition and that nothing else is going on, or else it kind of ruins the game. Taking steroids doesn't ruin the game because those guys they're trying actually too hard. But when you have the feeling that somebody is not trying, giving their best effort, or playing in a way that just might not be going towards winning, I think that just completely ruins the sport or any sport.
Yeah.
So I get it. I'm on that side of the fence.
And I should say I try to be intellectually consistent with this stuff. Like, I think the people who tested positive for steroids after it was understood and banned should also be not allowed in the Hall of Fame. I'm okay. I think Barry Bonds, McGuire, all those Clemens, all those guys from the 90s and very early 2000s, I believe they should all be in the Hall of Fame. We can argue whether they should or should not have been doing steroids, but as far as the rules as written, they were not breaking MLB rules. Your Manny Ramirez your David Ortiz these guys who failed it later. I don't believe that they should be in the Hall of Fame. Just like I don't think Pete Rose should be.
What we do know about the Hall of Fame, it is not intellectually consistent. So David Ortiz is in, Barry Bonds is not.
Right.
It's all
because David Ortiz is everyone loves David Ortiz. And Barry Bonds was a gigantic prick.
What's also funny is that
the reason Kurt Schilling's not in.
What's also funny is that like Barry Bonds is like mean to reporters and stuff like that, and David Ortiz was like stabbed in the back by a drug dealer for cheating on or having an affair with a drug dealer's wife, like in a club in the Dominican Republic, and everybody's like, things happen.
Big Poppy.
And like Barry Bonds is just kind of like pretty gruff and not very friendly, and they're like, you will die outside of the Hall of Fame. It's funny to me. I mean, I'm sure there's more that I'm not thinking of, but that's kind of how I characterize it in my brain.
Yeah.
I think this is the biggest news. This trumped the Cardinals news as far as the baseball sphere was going this week. The Giants, not only have they fired Farhan Zaidi, who I think is he's one of those guys that's going to get scooped up and he'll get a job somewhere really quick, but they named their World Series champion, Hall of Fame catcher Buster Posey as their new Pobo. I think this is wild. I think this is we don't really know enough about Buster Posey and his ability to manage a front office or to be a president of baseball operations to really make a judgment call right now. But it seems like a crazy move, I guess.
This guy has bewitched this entire organization for 20 years now or 15 years now or what. He must just be the most like enigmatic, just awesome person to be around because
confident,
everybody
smart,
loves Buster Posey to a degree where they've made him president.
Yes. With no qualifications.
Yeah, I mean, he has been like a special assistant to the Pobo for a few years now, right? So
the only time this was even really on my radar is when the Matt Chapman extension happened, and it was reported that Farhan was unable to get the deal closed, so the owners sent in Buster Posey to finalize the deal with Matt Chapman because I guess the ownership just could not let him get away. So they brought in the catcher, aka the closer, and Buster got it done. And then 2 months later, this happens.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I think there's a pretty easy equivalent, which would be to say, how would we all be feeling right now if on the press conference on Monday, Mozeliak said, and here's your new Pobo, and Yadier Molina came out. I mean, frankly, a lot of people, we'd probably be pretty excited, like at first, like, yeah.
I don't think that I would, Nate. I don't think I would be excited.
He's back. He slam dunks a basketball and then fires Marmal or something. Yeah, I mean,
I like the idea of Yadi being in the dugout in some capacity, but not in the front office. Sorry, Yadi.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I guess. Well, I don't know. Competitively, I hope he's trash, but, outside of that, I mean, I wish him luck. He could be great. He seems to be fucking excellent at everything he does.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me if he drops an album in the middle of this whole thing too.
Super hot record. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see. I think very quickly, how he does. Like the Giants have been criticized. They are not landing the free agents that they want to land. They go land Matt Chapman, who they already had. And I think that deal was kind of crazy, but they got their guy. And we'll see. Maybe they bring in a Corbin Burns. Maybe they bring in some other big names and kind of launch back into relevancy. But we'll see.
Yeah. 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 I mean, those like any position like that, it depends on how they have it structured. Is he the actual guy that's doing everything, or is he just organizing everything? Like we know Mozeliak was not only just organizing everything, he was the guy. Like
you think Buster Posey is going to come in and take a back seat? I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but there may be, like, at least at the start as he's getting into it, maybe like, who you surround yourself with or something like that. And they just want that icon, that franchise icon at the center of it.
Yeah. Well, he's there. He fired the GM yesterday. So he is out there. He's out there doing his thing.
I can't wait for him to fire the coach, and then he'll be in the dugout as the coach and as the Pobo. And then he's probably gonna pinch hit for himself at some point.
I was gonna say, is he gonna then fire Andrew? Or Patrick Bailey and get behind the plate again?
Yeah.
Let
me get back there.
I think we already talked about this, but last piece of news: Skip Schumacher has publicly announced that he will not return as Marlins manager. We all saw this coming, but he is now a free agent and maybe the hottest manager on the market right now. It seems like he could go to a lot of places.
Yeah, he's the hottest.
He's going to be a Red.
Wink, wink.
Okay.
He's a good looking dude.
he is a handsome guy. He's got a butt chin, and that goes a long way. We like that, don't we, folks?
We love a butt chin. People always come up to me telling me they love a butt chin. All right. Yeah, I don't know. He obviously is going to land somewhere. The Marlins continue to fumble the bag. It makes no sense to me what they're doing.
I was reading a report before we got on today that they said they were firing their clubbies. They're firing their field staff. They're like the walls are painted red with the blood of former Marlins staffers.
Well, I mean, that's what you get for having a surprise run to the playoffs in 2023, and then I guess not being grateful enough about it or something. It is so bizarre to me and to everyone. They what was her name? Kim Ing. They run her out, and now they're running out Schumacher, all to bring in worse, I guess. I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
I predict that he is the Reds manager in like 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah, or I wonder if the Angels are going to stick with Ron Washington.
I think they will. Seattle's has another opening.
Yeah.
But I'm predicting Reds right now.
Yeah. I've wondered if the Cardinals would try to bring him, but he probably just wants to stay at the manager level.
Yeah, he'll get enough offers and probably more money.
Well, I mean, look at Schilt. He might win Manager of the Year too. So.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as the playoffs go on, I'm sure. But yeah, it is what it is. All right, that's all I got for league news, Nady.
All right. Well, hey, the Tigers are now winning 5-2. If they can hold one more inning, Astros eliminated.
Yeah, and you'll be listening to this on Thursday when it's already been decided.
Yeah, we love that.
Let's keep talking about that.
We love it. All right.
Yeah.
Hambone, it's the last episode of the regular season, basically. So we're going to wrap up the game that we started at the beginning of the season. That is Draft Day, Heroes and Hatchlings Edition.
All right.
So just in case we're not here.
I think you had a song for this. Do you not have a song for this?
I do have a song, but our current recording platform doesn't allow me to play music live during the episode like this. So
Nate's going to cut this out now that I called him out for not having his button.
No, I'll leave it all in there, and then the song will play.
All right.
Take 3 players from the 26-man and 3 players off. And at the end of the year, whoever has the most combined F4 wins. We do check-ins about every quarter of the season. We checked in right near the end of August last, and it was basically neck and neck. So before I go into any of the numbers, Ben, how are you feeling about this? What do you think? What do you think your chances are?
Yeah, with the final season push, I think I feel pretty good. Also that McGreevy, those starts, I'm going to assume really helped me out quite a bit.
Well, let's get into the numbers. So I'm going to read our teams, and then I'm going to do the numbers. So my team was Nolan Arenado, Jordan Walker, Wilson Contreras, Lucan Baker, Tink Hence, and Tekoa Roby. Yours was Paul Goldschmidt, Sonny Gray, Nolan Gorman, Thomas Sajaci, Gordon Graceffo, and Michael McGreevy. So we'll start with my team. Nolan Arenado, when we last checked in, was at 2.4. He put up 3.1 total on the season. So he put up 0.7 WAR in basically the last month. Again, most of it defensive, but it was a pretty good month for Arenado. And he ends the season second overall in WAR, at least in our little game here. Neither of us picked Mason Wynn or Brendan Donovan in the draft, which will probably change next year.
Yeah.
I had Jordan Walker, who, despite hitting 5 home runs in the month of September and seeming to be starting to return to a productive major league player, his defense couldn't get a hang of it, and his offense he struck out a million times, which WAR does not like. He went from negative 0.5 F4 to negative 0.6. So pretty rough season. We all know this, but ending the season at negative 0.6, I believe the lowest WAR on the team of anyone who got meaningful time in 2024. And actually, negative 0.6 is quite a lot for what little time he did spend in the major league level.
Next year.
All right. Wilson Contreras, no change because he did not play at this time.
Right.
He ended the season at 2.6, which is frankly pretty incredible considering how little he played, and part of why I would like to see him still around.
When he was healthy, though, he was awesome.
Lucan Baker had some interesting offensive performance, but really didn't get a lot of play and also struggled in his own way. He went from 0.1 F4 at his last check-in to negative 0.1. So he lost some value over this last month. And then I had gambled that one of Tink Hence or Tekoa Roby would make their debut this year and give me some value in the last half of the year. Neither of them did. So I got 0 out of both of those guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold my total until after we go over the last couple of guys.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Paul Goldschmidt. He had a good week or two, but ultimately still lost value between now and between our last check.
Did he really? Wow. Yeah. I would not have guessed that.
Right. 1.2 to 1.1.
Wow.
Yeah. So he ends his Cardinal legacy. We already talked a lot about him.
Yeah. Stinker.
Sonny Gray, most valuable player in this competition, 3.8 F4.
Let's go.
0.8 from our last check-in.
Yeah.
He had a very solid month. Nolan Gorman remains at 0.3, where he's been since he was sent out.
Yeah. Okay.
Thomas Sajaci, all your minors picks played this year at the major league level. Only one of mine did. But Thomas Sajaci ends the season with 0 WAR. He was he had some cool moments. I'm excited about Thomas Sajaci, but he just didn't do enough in either direction to acquire any WAR. So he ends the season at 0. Graceffo ends at 0. Michael McGreevy.
Yes.
0.6.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the most productive starters on the Cardinals
of all time. I mean,
of all time. Yeah. No. I mean, that was a fun way to end the season. You know, I know it was the Giants, and they pulled Chapman. They did a Charlie Blackmon with Chapman, and it seemed like everyone wanted to get out of there. But still, 8 innings, no runs. Like, it was a really solid start.
It was, yeah. That's money, baby.
He's certainly going to be competing and likely be in the rotation next year. Would be my guess.
You know, it's so funny. His it doesn't. The underlying isn't, but he's looked great. So he has to be.
Yeah,
you have to do it.
Yeah. So Ben, I ended with a flat 5 F4.
Yeah.
You ended with 5.8. You smoked me.
Let's go.
Yeah. McGreevy obviously makes up the bulk of that. But even still, I got completely undone by both Walker and Baker being negative for the year. Because otherwise, Arenado and Contreras, together put up 5.7. If I had gotten anything not negative from anyone else, I would have beat you. But
but you didn't.
I didn't.
It really came down to the hatchlings this year, Nathan.
It did. So good game. Well struck. You got me. We'll do it again next year. It'll be an interesting choice next year. The minors are going to be a lot more in play. Maybe we should change it up a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe more hatchlings.
Maybe.
I do think we should just sit in this, me being better than you thing for a moment. But, if you don't want to, we don't have to.
No, I think that people want the show to end. Okay. Both this episode and just in general.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. Thank you all. Said it before. I'll say it again. Appreciate all of you for being here all season or whenever you got on. We'll continue the show every week throughout the off season. There's always something to talk about. And I'm looking forward to it, going through it with all of you. Patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. Get in there. And yeah, I think that's going to be it. So until next week, go Cardinals.
Go O's. Let's go O's. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Let's go Tigers.
Motor City Kitties. Let's go.
And Lions. I had an idea for a rapper name. Lil Goat. Why is anyone Lil Goat?
It's brilliant, honestly.
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah. Then they say they're the goat. They're Lil Goat. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's like super obvious. So you can call
do a song with Lil Wayne, Goat and Lil Goat. You just
Lil Goat. I'm just a little goat.
Writes itself.
Yep. I'm Baby Goat. That's the opener.
That's Big X's.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh,
Oh shit, Big X the Plug and Little Goat on the same track.
Oh shit.
The hottest track of the summer.
Oh damn. All right, let's do this. Here we go.